So, hello guys, today we have here for review the EOS 240 RBW from Raijintek, which is a 240mm all-in-one cooler that has addressable RGB lighting. This is the outside of the box. As you can see, it's mainly made out of this aqua color with a picture of the EOS 240 RBW in the front with this slim CPU block. Over here we have the block both on the side that makes contact with the CPU cooler and the upside with the RGB lighting. On the back we have another picture about the same that you have in the front, and on the top you have the different specifications. The different specifications of the cooler, the fans, the pump and the cold plate, for example. So let's move on to what really matters, which is the cooler itself. We're going to open the box and see what's inside. We got this foam to protect the insides of the cooler. We got the installation manual in the different CPU systems. And inside we have what we want, which is all the components of the EOS 240 RBW. First, here we have the accessories. Here we have one of the fans, another one of the fans, and here we have the all-in-one cooler itself. It comes with this protective plastic. So you got all the components over here. I'm gonna first give you a quick view of the accessories. We have two 240mm fans. They have here the 5V adapter, which is for the addressable RGB, and you got the 4-pin PWM connectors to plug it in your motherboard. And here you can see that you can daisy chain these connectors, so you can keep on having the addressable RGB part. So since these two fans are really similar, I'm going to go on to I got all the accessories laid out on the table. And for example, here we have the backplate for Intel and AMD 3 systems. We got the screws to install in the 2011 Intel platform. We have the button screws that will be used to secure the block in to the front plate. We got fan screws. We got the AM4 backplate, which is different than the AM3 one. We got the transit line, which is basically a Y splitter for the two fans. We got an AMD bracket, retention bracket for the block, and an Intel retention bracket for the block. So with this all out of the way, we're gonna have a closer look at the EOS 240 RBW. So here we have the Raijintek EOS 240 RBW. We got an aluminium radiator with high density fins. It is 29mm thick, which is quite a nice thickness for a radiator. We got this CPU block which in terms of connectors has this 5V PWM, which is to sync the colors with the rest of your system, and another daisy chain connector so you can keep on the RGB going. And in terms of the block, you can see the copper plate. It's a copper plated CPU block. You have to remove this cover before you install it. Obviously, we will show in a bit. And overall, it is nicely built. It seems sturdy enough. And I'm going to try to show you the other side, which has the R logo from Raijintek, which gives it a pretty powerful look even while turned off. So I bet when turned on it will be even more impressive. The cables are thick but bendy enough. If you can see, you can bend the CPU cooler so it will be of a fast install. And on the top here you have the Raijintek logo on top of this radiator. Overall, it's a pretty interesting piece, and up next we are going to show you how it looks installed in our test system, and we're going to show you some benchmarks, and most of all we're also going to show you how you can use addressable RGB even if you don't have a fan header in your motherboard, because for example our test system does not have it. It's an older B350 Tomahawk motherboard, and you can set up the system to your colors that you like using just a simple Arduino, as we have shown before in other Raijintek products. So stay. The first thing you need in order to prepare your cooler is to install this retention plate, onto the CPU block itself. The retention plate for your chosen platform, which is in this case we will be installing in the AM4 platform. The 4 screws to secure this bracket, these nuts, and you will need these spacers and button screws for this backplate. So I'm going to start by installing the CPU block as said in the instruction manual. You see here, you need to make sure that you install the brackets with the correct side, which is you see these wider spacing things here, in comparison with the other side, which is closed. So now you put on the screws. So after you screw it all, it should look like this, with all screws well tightened up. And up next, you are gonna grab your backplate. You're gonna grab your backplate and put on the corresponding screws in the holes, so you can pass it through the motherboard holes, as we will see. For example, you're gonna do this. It's nice and tight, and then what's gonna happen, you're gonna put this through your motherboard, and then you will tighten these nuts over it. It's really simple, it's really secure. So I'm gonna show you now how it looks like on the motherboard, so you can guys have a look. And after this, you will then put on the thumb screws on top and pass the retention plate that you installed over here, but I'm just gonna show you, it's easier. So here we have the motherboard, and now what you're gonna do, you're gonna lift it up and put these on the back, and then you're gonna go and grab the nuts, and you need to install them the correct orientation. So don't forget, it's this little you see this, it's this part with the black part under, and this part, the metal part, goes on top. And here then you just roll this. They go inside really easy. You wanna secure these diagonally, so to make sure that you have an even distribution of the pressure on the backplate. This is the finished look of the backplate install. Then afterwards you're gonna have to put some of your desired thermal paste on. It can be anything you want. We're gonna use Notebook to ensure consistent results across testing. You just put the amount that you want. You have like a pea-sized amount, so, and it's usually better to have more than too little, because thermal paste is still more conductive. A large layer of thermal paste is still more conductive than air gaps, so it's really important to actually use an appropriate amount of thermal paste. Up next, you're gonna choose an orientation for your cooler. I'm gonna go like this because it has the R logo correct side up. Then you place it on top of the, just gonna put the radiator here. You push it down, then you use the provided screws to secure the block onto the cooler. Once again, you want to do this side with the screw side up, and press it down, and don't tighten it all the way first, and tighten it in a cross pattern. To ensure you have a nice even amount of pressure on all corners, which is really important for cooling performance. You see here, it's really important that you tighten it evenly on all four corners. And like this. After everyone is tightened down a little bit, you can then start to tighten everyone down a bit more, and eventually, if you want to assure that it's a secure and providing the correct amount of pressure, you can go grab a screwdriver and then finish it tightening up the screws, because a good pressure is really important, and a good contact force is really important for the best performance of these types of coolers. Actually, any cooler really, and the pressure that you apply helps you with spreading the thermal paste as well. So this is a finished look of the cooler installed, and I'm gonna pan out so you can see the view of. You got the radiator here. We're gonna still install the fans, because we're now using our testing setup in an open box, because it's a lot easier to just change parts and test them out. This is also the RX 5600 XT from XFX, which we will also have a review soon, but I just wanted you to have a look of the general part. And important things that you need to know: you need to plug in this cable to your addressable RGB header in your motherboard, or, as we will see, we're going to use an Arduino for connecting for controlling the lighting. And very, very important, you need to plug this SATA cable to one PSU SATA cable, or else you won't have a pump working, and that's completely a disaster for your cooler performance. So up next, I'm going to show you a finished install with fans and with everything lit up. So what you're hearing now is the noise of the EOS 240 RBW in an idle situation, and as you can see, the fan pump is quite a noticeable noise, which is one of the main drawbacks of this cooler. And if I put on something like a prime, the fan noise is a little subdued the pump noise is a little bit subdued due to the fan noise, which is to be expected. And you can also see the several color effects that are possible to do, and these are color effects that are being made with an Arduino microprocessor, a microcontroller. Basically, if you don't have addressable 5-volt adders in your motherboard, don't worry, because you can produce these effects. This is just a random sample. If you want me to go further in depth to the effects that are possible to do, I can do so, but you can see that it has quite a nice effect on the LEDs themselves. And you got several array of colors, and those are also really bright. Now this is the noise when running something at full load. Thankfully the fans are not really noisy, and I'm gonna take off the camera from the stand for you so you guys can see. Thankfully the fans are not noisy, and they make for quite a nice show, as you can see here. They are really colorful, and it's a nice look, but it really depends on what you want. Overall, the EOS RBW was easy to install. Once again, I'm using this outside box compartment because it's easier to change things up, and the fans are not noisy at all. I'm actually gonna put the microphone closer to the fans, but you will see that's not a problem at all. I really think that the noise would be even further subdued if you're listening to music with headphones, or maybe somewhere using this on your case. But overall, the installation was also really easy. The backplate, as you saw before, entered in really well. I think the more difficult part was actually installing the CPU retention block on the CPU block itself. So if I had to do a review for this, and I'm gonna show you now the performance graphs, you can see that it has a little bit less performance than a Noctua NHD15 CPU cooler, which is to be expected because the Noctua is more expensive actually, despite being an air cooler. And the EOS provides adequate performance, but the only thing that I did not really like with the EOS 240 RBW is the fact that the pump produces a really noticeable noise even when not during full load. But the performance really shows for itself. The EOS is a decent and adequate CPU cooler. It handled our overclock with no problems, but remember that this is a Ryzen 5 2400G, which is not a specifically powerful CPU, so to speak. And overall, the package is really nicely built from Raijintek. It provides an adequate value if you want a 240mm all-in-one cooler with a limited budget. It performs adequately enough. It has RGB lighting, which for many people is important because there is so many people that are trying to get the best performance. More people nowadays are more focused on the aesthetic of the case itself, and in that case this EOS 240 RBW can prove to be a good choice if you want something cheaper that is capable of doing pretty much everything on a budget for an all-in-one cooler. So if you also want to know more about the microcontroller performing as an addressable RGB controller, please let me know. I can do a separate video on that.
because I'm used to do like embedded systems programming, and despite that, it's something really easy that everyone can do because there are libraries for that right nowadays. And as always, please leave a like and comment on our videos if you want to know anything more about this cooler in particular, or anything else that we have reviewed in the past few weeks, or just another video. Please let us know. And as always, see you on the next video, guys.